You'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. This is a Mets cheer for all your Mets here. Let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home
exciting, thrilling, awesome. Let's take a look.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets with Rob. How is everybody doing at 6 p.m. on this Wednesday? And oh, what a Wednesday it was. Very early in the morning. Welcome to Mets Hot Stove Live, guys. Hopefully everybody is enjoying themselves, especially if you're a Mets fan, because of the early morning news that we got when most people were sleeping, that Carlos Correa says, I do not want to play on the West Coast. Who the hell wants to wear the black and orange when you can wear the orange and blue? And Billy Epler and Uncle Stevie got the deal done. 12 years, $315 million, bringing Correa where he belongs. Merry Buckmas, ladies and gentlemen. Mets got their guy. This is what we were asking for as Met fans. Yes, they re-signed Nimmo. Yes, they bolstered the rotation after having a lot of free agents in that rotation with Senga, with Quintana, with Verlander. Bringing back Carlos Carrasco. Revamping the bullpen with Raley, with Diaz, with Robinson. And, of course, they're probably not done. And that's probably a guarantee. Of course, guys, there is topics on the side. That's what we're going to go through today. The rest of the stream will be about an hour tonight, guys. So we're going to go through the Correa situation, about how everything broke down from what I've been looking at over the last couple of hours, just to find a little bit of information of what the hell happened with Correa and the Giants that led to the Mets basically stealing them away from San Francisco. Also, we're going to go over the Hendricks rumors that are heating up. And I'm going to get to that also in the second segment. Another bat that's a possibility that this might be associated with the Liam Hendricks trade. We'll get into that player in a little bit as well. And of course, looking at the lineup the way it is right now with the current roster. And with the lineup, we're going to talk about the 40-man, which is interesting because it's a little above 40 on the roster right now. So the Mets do have to make some deals and decisions to make. They got to get guys off the roster because you can't go 43 men on a 40-man roster. So it's basic math, simple math. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Mets are going to do. And of course, as always, around 6:40 or so, we're going to get the Q&A section. So hopefully hold your questions until that moment, 6:40, and make sure you capitalize your question around that time period so we can get right into your questions and try to answer them as best as possible. And I'm going to say what up to everybody. I haven't done that in a while, and that's on me, but there's been a lot more people in the stream, and it's a lot harder to say everybody. So we all know Ken. We don't got to worry about him, right? Grant, member of Talking Mets with Rob. What's up? Jay, Tommy, Steven, Real Deal, Lewis, Transistor, Tyler, Dominic, Sean, a member of Talking Mets with Rob, Christopher T. Who else we got here? And looks like and Sledge. What's up? And Joey, a member of Talking Mets with Rob, and Tyler. I think I said Tyler. I don't blame you, buddy. Let's just bring that up. I said that earlier in the live stream earlier today about the signing of Carlos Correa. Listen, I said this. Listen, there's no way. And it's your boy, Robert Joe. What's up? What's up, MLB News? What's up? Victor, what's up? So listen, as much as we're excited as Mets fans, the adrenaline's pumping, you're pumped up, the Mets are still not done. You do have to feel somewhat. I do feel bad for Giant fans because they thought they had Aaron Judge. John Heyman reported it, the mysterious guy of Arson Judge, but everybody thought that was gonna go down, right? There was all the speculation. It was just everywhere going crazy about that, and we thought that the Giants were gonna land Judge. Unfortunately, Judge really wanted to be a Yankee, took that offer to the Yankees, say if you can match it, I'll be a Yankee. And this one was a little bit different. This one, look, if you're a Giants fan and you wake up early in the morning and you're wondering what the hell happened, it's kind of messed up. It really is. Like, no matter whose fault it was, apparently, and we'll get into this in a second, but no matter whose fault it was, it still sucks if you're a Giants fan. And I know you guys had a couple of World Series over the last 10 years or so. I understand that, but when you had high hopes, when your GM, when your owner talked about spending big and have a lot of money to spend, and you basically spent none of it by losing out on Judge, losing out on all the shortstops that you could have been in on, and you basically get nothing, it's hard. It really is. So, unfortunately, it sucks. And I do feel bad, Tyler. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm trying to slow down my enthusiasm here because there is a lot of fans of, I don't have no ill will for the Giants. Like, 2016 Connor Gillespie, yes. But like I said, it sucks because I've been in your position. I know when, Mets get screwed on a daily basis with all this stuff. So let me just block this guy. This is a little annoying. So it's unfortunate. And you know what? This is not the Wilpon Mets anymore. This is not the Bertie Madoff and Friends Mets anymore. It is the Steve Cohen. I got more money than God, and I'm going to use it. Like he said when he took over the Mets. He said, this business with the Mets, I'm not looking to make money. I have a business that makes money. This is my passion. This is like a hobby. He's a fan. That is the owner. Like, everybody who talks about it as a fan, always, that's like a dream come true. Owning the team you're a fan of. And that's Cohen. And that's, you can't ask for anything more. Anthony, I'm good. Thank you so much. So, with that said, let's get a little bit more into the Correa situation. Obviously, we heard earlier in the yesterday or around middle of the day that the press conference was postponed. And, people didn't look crazy into that, with the whole thing with COVID. I know some people, COVID's like, whatever. But, it's still a thing for some cities, some states, and California is still a little strict with certain things. So people thought, oh, maybe, when he was doing the physical, they tested him for COVID and he got COVID and that's why he was postponed. That was my first thought, to be honest with you. And then I started to look at, like, wait a second, is Carlos Correa vaccinated? Because then I started to look at laws in San Francisco, in the city and the state of California, but that rule that you can't work in any type of workplace unless you're vaccinated, that ended in June of this year. So it kind of went out the wayside. So then you start wondering, all right, now we're hearing the physical. Is the physical really the issue? Or was it the Giants having cold feet? Because I put it as this. I do think it's more of the Giants at this point, because I was very interested to be like, you know what? Maybe it was Correa that got cold feet and said, the hell with this. Like, I'm going to a team that needs a lot more help to win in a division when they have the Padres and the Dodgers. And Correa wasn't going to make them much better. Right? They didn't make enough moves. Now, if you're talking about they already signed Judge and they were going to get Correa, different story. Now that team is looking a lot better. Yeah, they need a little bit more help, but it's a start, and that's unfortunate. Blind Bait, I'll get to it in a second, buddy. Yeah, Blind Bait, absolutely. It does seem like the same way. But you know what? Listen, it came down to what we've been hearing is that Carlos Correa was getting ready, like basically getting dressed for the press conference when he found out, I'm assuming from Scott Boras, his agent, that the thing with the... Oh, Joe, I know. I know, and I already have that all set up just in case. So, with that said, that he was getting dressed, and then he got the word that the press conference was postponed. And this was clearly, all indications were the doctors that the Giants use to do physicals for their team, multiple doctors, they have multiple opinions. They are more of they're basically 2 or 3 doctors that clear a player for their physical, to clear them for the contract. Apparently, all the doctors agreed that he was cleared to go forward and sign the contract officially. Well, apparently, the Giants, the top executives, all of a sudden, became doctors and decided, oh, we don't like the medicals for whatever reason. It wasn't the back. It was some old injury that hasn't resonated himself in a couple of years. And I just don't understand. Like, that actually tells me, yeah, John, exactly. It was an old minor league injury, which is what, 7-8 years ago. I mean, that's a joke. And this was clearly the Giants were like, I don't think the Giants wanted to pay Correa this type of money, knowing that with Correa, they're not going to be any better than probably third place. And I think they were like, why are we going to spend this money when we're going to end up in the same spot we ended up last year? And that's probably true. And I think they just got cold feet. If they would have done it in a better way. And listen, you don't tell Boras, oh, this and that with the medicals. Boras is going to give you the middle finger and find another suitor. And he did right away. He knew the Mets. And I said this yesterday on my premiere video with the Mets Hot Stove premiere video. If you haven't checked it out, listen to what I said. I said it just like this. If the Giants back out of the deal or the deal falls apart, the Mets are definitely going to sign Carlos Correa. I said that. And it was obvious. Boras and Cohen have each other on speed dial. All right. We know at the end of the Correa quote unquote sweepstakes that the Mets jumped in late with a big offer. So it wasn't much discussions, even though apparently it took 4 hours for them to negotiate the contract. And let's be honest, for anybody who thinks that the Mets don't know about whatever stupid injury or medical that the Giants perceived as problematic. If it is officially an old injury from the minors, then they clearly didn't want to sign this deal. And it's messed up that they even let it get this far and basically embarrassed themselves and the player. It was stupid. But you know what? Correa even said he wanted to play with Lindor. He wanted to be in the big market. And he's here now. And the physical is going to be fine, right? The Mets, I can guarantee you, know exactly what the Giants saw in the medicals that scared him away. And it was an old injury. So it's it's funny to me, but it, you know what? It goes right into our favor. And thank God. Because Correa is better than anybody we were talking about over the last couple of days. Better than Conforto. Better than Drury before he signed with the Angels. Better than Duvall. Better than Mancini. This is a guy that you can put at the top of the order, 1 and 2. Somebody you could put in the middle of the order. It's options now with the Mets. And now the big question is with Correa, where is he going to play? Well, he's going to play third base, right? There was some speculation that he might play second. No. He's playing third base, all right? He played third base in the World Baseball Classic with Lindor playing shortstop. That's where he's playing. He's playing third base. So with that said, now a lot of the focus and a lot of the excitement was around Ronnie Mauricio in the Dominican Winter League winning the MVP, playing third base. He played all the positions short and also second, but he mostly played third base. And now with Beatty and Mauricio basically is nowhere. I don't know where you're going to put him. Yes, you could put Beatty in left field, and Mauricio still doesn't have a position, which is shocker because the Mets, I'm telling you, from this day, the Mauricio is going to get traded somewhere, somehow, in some type of package. Somewhere, I don't know what type of package. Maybe it's at the deadline for Ohtani. I don't know. But, and I know Mauricio is extremely good. He's getting better year by year. He's probably I think he's gotten better, yet he dropped in the Mets prospect list, which is crazy. But at the end of the day, where are you going to put him? Now, if the Mets were smart, they should have made him start the outfield and learn the outfield years ago. When as soon as they signed Lindor, this guy should have not been playing an infield position at all. And now with Correa, and just so everybody knows about all the signings that the Mets made, not one signing cost us a draft pick. Not one player the Mets signed had a qualifying offer. That's amazing. And this is awesome. And I think that you have to look at it as Cohen's 5-year plan. Remember, he says he wants to win a World Series, hopefully multiple, but he said one wants to win a World Series within a 5-year period. That's his goal. This is year 3. He's clearly going for it, right? 2-year deal for Verlander. Scherzer still got 2 years. He has an opt-out, but there's probably no way he's going to opt out. And then you just get Correa, Lindor, and you got all these guys. And, you know, we remember the 99 Mets, right? The 98 Mets, you know, the Olarus, the Alfonsos, the Ordonez, the Ventura, right? You know, one of the best infielders in all of baseball. Well, people are starting to making it look like that again. Like some people put their faces of the guys and of Correa, Lindor, McNeil, and Alonso on their bodies. It was pretty cool, of that old magazine with the defensive wizards and all that stuff. So that was pretty cool. And yes, John, that's another thing. You know, the Mets lost a couple of guys. You know, they lost Bassett, they lost DeGrom. You know, they got a couple of picks by offering qualifying offers, so that was good for them. So, finishing up on the Correa situation. Yeah, Eddie, there's no reason to keep Vientos. He has no position, and the Mets have enough bats that they can put at the DH spot now, which the Mets got Escobar. What are you going to do with him now? He's probably going to be your DH, which is perfectly fine because you don't need a platoon when you have a switch hitter in Escobar at the DH spot. And now you got a platinum glove at third base. I mean, it's options galore. And it just, widens and deepens the lineup even more. So with the Correa thing, obviously we have to wait for a physical. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's fine. It's not gonna trust me. Cohen is not gonna let this become an embarrassment for the Mets. It's not going to happen. They're way too far down the road to let anything happen. Cohen is not that stupid. All right. And when it happens, I'm hoping the press conference is probably on Friday. That would be cool. Excuse me. That would be pretty cool. Because I want to go to the MLB shop in New York and get my jersey because I want to see what number he's wearing. I'm assuming it's either going to be 1 or 4. Excuse me. And because I know McNeil has one now, but no way that he's going to probably choose any other number. And McNeil might give up the number 1. Who knows? But I think he'll go back to number 4, which is kind of cool with me. And I'll be buying that Lindor jersey right here that I bought the day we traded for him. I bought that, and I'm going to buy another blue jersey because I'm not a pinstripe guy. I'm going to buy another blue jersey. I got my black Scherzer jersey, which is behind me, and I'm going to get my Correa jersey. At least I know these guys are going to be here for a long time. So, topic number 2, which everybody sees talking about in the chat. And once again, guys, please hold your questions until the end of around 6:40 or so I can see your comments, and make sure you put it in capitalize the letters so I can see it. I just wanted to go with that. So Hendrick rumors are heating up. Yes, yes, yes. And along with that, and this is why that this Correa deal can mean something that is very odd, because you got Beatty and you got Mauricio around that can't be in the infield anymore. Well, you could put Beatty in left field with Cannon. That shouldn't be an issue. But now we're hearing that the Mets are in heavy talks, and it's getting really serious now. I mean, names are getting floated now that the Mets and the White Sox have been talking about Liam Hendricks with Vientos a part of the deal, and James McCann. And oh, by the way, a particular left fielder that could be in the deal coming with Hendricks in Eloy Jimenez, who had a 290 average and hit 16 home runs. Again, a decent left fielder that hits for a higher average than Canna, but hits around the same amount of home runs. But he's much better defensively than Canna, and that's a player that I would have no problem throwing in that deal. And the money works in this situation. Eli Jimenez doesn't make a lot of money. Hendricks makes 14 million, and McCann makes 12 million. So that kind of evens it out. And when Hendricks, he has 1 year left on his deal with a club option for 2024. But I was reading the details, Christian. I don't know if you saw this, but I believe this is true. I was looking at it on Sports Track, and I also checked it out on the White Sox website. In his contract for Hendricks, if he gets traded, that club option automatically gets added into to the contract. So basically, it would be a 2-year deal, which I don't think anybody would complain about. I could have read that wrong, but I think that's what it is. Right now, it's a club option, but that's for the White Sox. I think if he gets traded, it comes into effect, and the Mets would have him for 2 years. Which, let's be honest, there is no way. Listen, if the Mets get Liam Hendricks, even if it is only Liam Hendricks, you're getting a closer that had 36 or 37 saves last year, who is a guy who's going to be an 8th inning guy easily. And then all you do is push back the rest of you guys. You got, now Robinson's your 7. Adivino can be your split guy from 6 to 7. If a guy goes a couple of days in a row, you give him a rest. You got guys to back him up now. And you get Riley as well. And I still think the Mets are going to go after Andrew Chafin. So look at that bullpen. So, and this is why I like the moves the Mets are making. When the people says, yes, it's great to spend money, but don't spend it recklessly. The Mets have not spent it recklessly. Give me a sign-in that was a reckless sign-in. There really wasn't, right? Everybody got overpaid, so that's not the issue. The issue is, did they overpay for a guy that they didn't need? You can say they might not have needed Correa, but the Mets needed a right-handed run-producing bat, and that is Correa, right? No, I don't think anybody's going to complain and exactly, John. everybody's going to complain that the Mets were like, you know what? I'd rather have Correa than any of the guys that could be a decent part of this lineup, like Mancini or Drury before he signed, and Adam Duvall or those type of guys. You know, some people were talking about trading for Devers, but the problem with that situation was the fact that the Mets got their third baseman by just spending money. In the Devers case, they would have had to trade for him, give up tons of prospects, and sign him. So they would have had to do both. The Mets spending over $800 million on all the players in total kept every one of their prospects. That's a huge deal. And you know what? Like John just said, it sets up a deal that could possibly land us Hendricks and possibly Eloy Jimenez. And what does that mean? You know, is it possible that Canna could be in that deal? That's a possibility. I'd rather go with the Beatty Jimenez platoon. You know, Jimenez is a righty, Beatty's a lefty. I would do that. Thank you, Christian. That's what I was thinking. Okay, I did read it right. So that's the whole thing with the Hendricks situation. Again, it's starting to heat up. I saw it on Twitter a couple of times now. Let me just make sure of something really quick. All right, I'm just checking some guys. Wanted to see something about the Hendricks thing. Okay, so yes, it was the whole thing with the White Sox love James McCann, right? They didn't want to get rid of him. Hey, Brooklyn Mets, what's up, buddy? Thank you, buddy. Again, it must be that New York accent, right? It's that white New York Italian accent. Thank you, Brooklyn Mets. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's the thing when it comes to Liam Hendricks. So the names that are getting thrown out there, the Chicago White Sox, the best years of McCann's career was with Chicago. Whatever it was, it worked. And I do think the fact that and Sal Alcala is going crazy on Baseball Night in New York. I just heard him really quick. So again, the money fits. $14 million for Hendricks, $12 million for McCann. The money fits. Eloy Jimenez, I don't think he makes a lot of I think it's like $6 or $7 million. I think he's still on that rookie arbitration deal situation, but he's not making a lot. And then you throw Vientos in there to sweeten the pot a little bit. And, you know, again, Vientos doesn't have a position. You know, can he be a good bat? Yeah. But, again, the Mets have too many options now at DH with the Correa sign-in that Vientos is basically just the pawn. And if the White Sox like him, you might as well get one of the best relievers in the game in Liam Hendricks. And also you possibly can get Eloy Jimenez, who is another, excuse me, average guy who hits above 285. He had a 293 or 294 average last year with 16 home runs. And that's not a bad idea. Yes, the home runs are, but again, if you get consistent at bat, he's a run producer as well. So that's something that you just have to look at and say Jimenez is better than Canna. Right, defensively and offensively. You know, I liked Canna, but let's be honest, he basically had his best year of his career last year, offensively, and that's not saying a lot. But he had a couple of big moments for the Mets. But Eloy Jimenez could be, I wouldn't say a star, but I think he'll thrive in a big market with the attention that he likes to have. You know, he's a guy that likes the dramatics. He's that type of guy. Well, MLB News and Rumors, because of the fact that, let's be honest, if you can upgrade left field even a little bit, you're just making that lineup even more deadly. It's not about, listen, Jimenez isn't making no money. If the White Sox want to get him in, put him in a deal with Liam Hendricks, you do it. Like, why stop it? No, Mario, see, that's the thing. Now, the White Sox said, earlier, like a couple of weeks ago, that they wanted to shed a little bit of payroll. They were very disappointed at what happened the last couple of years. You know, they basically choked in the second half of the season into the end of the season. And I don't think the owners want to spend a certain amount of money to keep some money on the payroll to probably figure it out again. Like, they haven't really done nothing this year. So, I mean, again, maybe the Mets have to pick up a little bit of the money of McCann, but again, if they want Vientos, fine, take them. Like I don't know why they're doing it, but if they're stupid enough to do, and this is something that Brian Cashman does a lot. He'll take a couple of guys that they that teams are really trying to get rid of, and then you give them a guy in your farm system that basically has no position and is going to be projected as a DH, and you give him James McCann, who is basically a nothing. And now what people are forgetting, now you have Omar Narvaez, who is going to be a starting catcher. You don't pay the starting Omar Narvaez $7.5 million per year to sit on the bench. So if I think Alvarez is going right to the minor leagues and letting him work on his catching game. And, during spring training, you got a Spanish-speaking catcher in Narvaez that can work with Alvarez a lot. I think that's a smart move. And I think McCann is just a guy that's trying to figure himself out. And I don't even think he knows what he is at this point. And it's not working. So do it. So yeah, Trevor May, I don't think he was ever coming back anyway. Again, going to the A's is just a way to get a couple of $1 million, and he'll probably get traded at the deadline if he's pitching well. That's basically what you do when you go to the A's. So with that said, look out for this deal again. The Mets are like, it's like the midnight Mets, right? It's very rare that they make these deals during the day. They like to have people wake up with the news. The Verlander was in the middle of the day. I remember because I went live during that. But everything else was late. The Nimmo was late. Senga was kind of late. Like it was so many, or it's early in the morning or very, very late at night. It's crazy. Yeah, fire blazing, exactly. Mauricio is another expendable one. Again, it's not that I don't want to keep Mauricio, but he's not an outfielder. And that's the thing that is annoying to me, right? The fact that the Mets knew that they had a top shortstop, because when the Mets got Lindor, Mauricio was their number 1, number 2 prospect in the system. No reason why you keep him in the infield at that point as soon as you signed Lindor. He should have been playing the outfield, no matter if it was center or one of the corner outfielders, to get him ready for another position, because his bat's going to be well. And he showed it in the Dominican Winter League. What is he, 21, 22 years old? And he's dominating that league. I mean, that's a really good league. And I think it's important to know that this is the chips they have, just in case they need that one extra piece at the deadline to put them over the top, because we know it's going to be a crazy. Mets hot stove is on. Don't worry. So, with that said, it's important to know Mauricio is not going to be the DH. You got too many options for that. Steven, I would do kick. See, I wouldn't want to give up Carlos Carrasco. I like depth in the rotation, but I do that deal anyway, to be honest with you. I have no problem putting either Peterson or McGill in that 5th spot. I have no problem with that. All right, let me just check something. All right, guys. So, number 3, another bat target. And again, this goes along with the trade with Hendricks. Eloy Jimenez is the type of guy that is a good player. And, I'm not going to go crazy like, oh, wow, he's going to be so much better than Canna. But I think he can be so much better in this lineup. I think Canna's kind of, well, Barry, that's understandable. But guess what? Liam Hendricks has no say in this situation at all. He doesn't have a no trade clause. He is getting $15 million, $14 million this year with a club option. If that trade happens, the Mets pick up that second option and it's a guarantee. So it doesn't matter what he wants. Again, would he want to be with the White Sox, who clearly can't win, or does he want to be a setup guy for one of the better teams on paper in baseball? All right, I don't think anybody's going to complain to be a setup guy for a team that has World Series aspirations. Like, isn't the whole point of winning? Like, he already got his money. It's not like he didn't get closer type of money. It's not like he's getting a pay cut if he becomes the setup man for the Mets. And it's not like he's not going to close games for the Mets, right? When Diaz pitches 2 or 3 days in a row, well, now you got Hendricks to pitch 2 days straight if you need it. And that's important. And let's be honest, Seth Lugo wanted to be a starter for 5 years. Yet the Mets are like, no, you're in the bullpen. So there you go. Yeah, I don't think Mancini is an option. Again, it depends on what happened with Hendricks. If the Mets get Eloy Jimenez in that trade with Hendricks, then I basically think it's kind of moot to get Trey Mancini, because where are you playing him? It is interesting the fact that at this moment, the Mets don't have a backup first baseman, which is very interesting, especially if they trade Vientos, who can actually, play a little bit of first base. So, maybe you can get Trey Mancini as a bench guy. But again, then the Mets would definitely have to go to a two-man catcher on the 26-man roster, because of the fact that, well, that means Alvarez is going down to the minors, which I'm okay with, because it's not like Alvarez's bat is going to be the end all be all. Where are you going to bat Alvarez at this point, right? You can't sit Escobar on the bench. You're probably going to make him the DH. So it's pretty cool. But I think Eloy Jimenez, if he gets traded with Hendricks to the Mets, I think that solidifies our roster, at least with the lineup and at least the offensive part of the roster. Like the bench players, like you put Canner as your fourth outfielder. Escobar can be a DH. He's a switch hitter. So, Vogelback can be that bat off the bench late in games in a pinch hit situation. If you're at the bottom of your order, you still got Luis Guillorme. And listen, it's pretty cool. Well, muted fifth infielder. Yeah, but you know what? That's fine. He don't have to play the field, but Escobar can still be a 20-plus home run guy. Like, as bad as he had last year, he hit 20 home runs. Like, that's a guy I would have no problem putting at the DH. He hit more home runs than Vogelback. I think he's a better hitter, and that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, Christian, I checked that the Mets are not on it. Listen, the White Sox wouldn't be talking to the Mets if Hendricks was, if that team was on the no trade list, or Hendricks approved it, and they're talking to the Mets now. You wouldn't hear the rumors if it wasn't part of the team. So that's something that is very interesting to look at, but we shall see. And it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire. We'll see if it comes up really soon. Because if that's another move the Mets make, Jesus. You can't predict. A Mets fan dreaming of an offseason like this, you couldn't even do. You couldn't even set up a perfect dream offseason like this. I don't think any Mets fan could predict all of this to happen. Like, it's almost impossible because it's unprecedented. 100% unprecedented. This never happened in Major League Baseball before. So, all right, John, I'm checking now. Let's see. Give me a second, guys. And guys, you can start putting in your questions so I can start reading them in a couple of minutes. Let's see. Mets news and rumors. What is it saying? Jeez, there's so many tweets. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. All right, I see that. All right, so we're gonna go into that a little bit more, but let's talk about the Mets lineup really quick. And I think Joe just tweeted what I needed. Thank you, Joe. Again, I was trying to talk to you guys. I didn't want to. All right, so here we go. Mets, White Sox in talks currently regarding Liam Hendricks. Mark Vientos' name has been brought up. Mets like Eloy Jimenez also. So there we go. So we just talked about that. So again, could it be another late night move for the Mets? David, I do think Mauricio is probably a trade piece. I don't think now. I think it's more of at the trade deadline. If the Mets really need something, like God forbid somebody gets hurt and they need to move a big prospect for, I don't know, an arm or a bat, then yes. MLB News and Rumors is probably going to be a hell of a lot at the moment. Alrighty, so Mets projected lineup. I put this. Somebody put this earlier today. Where the hell did I put it? Let me see. Let's see. Where did I put it? All right, so this is what somebody put. I think it was Met City on Instagram. Brandon Nimmo, Carlos Correa, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Starler Marte, either Vogelback or Escobar as the DH, which makes sense. Mark Canha, and one of the catchers. So that's pretty damn good, right? I don't like Marte batting 6 because you waste his speed. And that's why I think that McNeil, I would be fine with him batting 5th, but not in this lineup. You know, let's be honest. I mean, wouldn't you want to bat McNeil 9th, right? You get that high average bat in the bottom of the lineup who can drive in runs with people on base. That's a good idea as well. I do like Marte. I like Nimmo Marte 1-2. I think that's lethal. I think you could put Correa behind Pete Alonso and it'll be perfectly fine. Again, I think DH is going to be Escobar until further notice. And I think Mark Canha at the moment is your 8th hitter. And let's be honest, there was a lot of times when Mark Canha was your 6th hitter last year. So, yeah, no. Well, see, transition, that's another thing, too. Alex Ramirez, not less than, a year and a half ago, he was out of the top 10. And he worked his way to the number 4 prospect in the Mets system. So he is very high on the Mets list as a potential star outfielder. At least that's what they project him as. He's a very good defensive outfielder, and no doubt, if his offense can translate, like he's a very tall, lanky guy. He's not really built. His body hasn't developed yet, right? His body is developing similar to Mauricio, like that type of build. Like Mauricio, if you look at Mauricio 3 years ago, he was a skinny guy, and now he bulked up a little bit. He got older, and he's building up into his body. He's forming into his body, and I think Alex Ramirez is going to be the same thing. They project him to be a center fielder, but if he gets too big, he'll probably be a right fielder. So would you be surprised if you see him in 2024? I mean, let's be honest. In 2024, you're going on to the last year of Marte's contract, and that could be a possibility of Alex Ramirez replacing Marte, which is perfectly fine with me. Mark Canha, I don't think is going to get traded. I think the Mets like him, even as a 4th outfielder. Well, yeah, lost. But the problem with that, when it comes to, they're not moving Nimmo for at least 4 years. He ain't going anywhere at all. And again, the Mets should have put Mauricio in the outfield 2 years ago. At this point, putting him in the outfield now is going to hurt his value if he struggles. And that doesn't make sense in the Mets situation. All right, so that is the Mets lineup. Again, you could do a lot of things with it. Like nobody is definitely, we all have different opinions on the lineup, right? You can see Correa batting 2, but then Marte batting 6th or 5th. I just don't like that. Even though Marte hit a lot of big home runs last year and was one of our strongest run producers. So, yeah, if you put him 5th with runners on base in the top 4 of the lineup, yeah, I think that makes sense. David, what are you talking about? Beatty and McCann for what? Yeah, Ron. No, Marte's not hitting leadoff. Again, last year, I wanted Marte to bat leadoff because he is a stolen base guy. And Nimmo takes pitches, puts the bat on the ball. I thought Marte 1, Nimmo 2 always was a lot better, but Buck doesn't see it that way. Well, Jonathan, he's always he's a depth outfield. You got to have guys in your lineup, in your minors that could be ready to go if there's an injury. That's why you keep those guys. You can't just get rid of guys you don't think you need at the 26-man roster. That's why you have a 40-man roster just in case of injury, so you can bring these guys up. Yeah, David, you don't have to do that for Hendricks. That's the whole idea. We just talked about it. The White Sox like Vientos, and they remember they put McCann in the starting role with the White Sox, and they liked him a lot. So that's the intrigue there. And again, they want to get rid of the Liam Hendricks salary. I think the White Sox see it as they rather pay a position player similar money than a reliever getting more the same amount of money that a position player will. Position players play every day, and they probably see a better value in that. That's the only thing I can think of with that. All right, so we talked about the lineup, and now we're just going to go through the questions really quick, guys. So we got about 15 minutes left. Thank you guys for tuning in. Before we finish up with that, don't forget to please hit on that like button. And tomorrow, if the deal doesn't happen over the next 15 hours or so, I'm going to be doing a video with Liam Hendricks and the possible trade Mets White Sox and what the details are. Again, I already said them to you, but I'm going to give a couple of different trade proposals, probably 2 or 3, because you always hear names and then it changes a little bit, based on salary and all that other stuff. So look out for that tomorrow. Possibility there'll be no Mets Hot Stove Live tomorrow. But again, if anything happens while I'm not at work, which would be nice, I will go live to talk about whatever trade or possible signing. All right, so let's go through the questions. Is the Cohen tax deductible? I'm assuming so. I mean, you're paying tax on a salary-based situation, and I even think the payroll is a write-off. To be honest with you, because remember he got two businesses, so I'm assuming some of that is write-offs, in my opinion. Christopher T, rate this squad A minus, A plus, or S tier. I'm gonna give it A minus, only because as much as the Mets have done, they did add only Carlos Correa. Again, that's a big deal in this lineup. That makes this lineup a hell of a lot better. But there is still question marks, right? We still don't really know who's going to be the DH, right? Left field is still a kind of, if Canley's your 8th hitter and that's all they do, not a big deal, right? Oh, now they're talking about Beatty and Escobar because of the Correa thing, and they're also looking at Hendricks, so that's interesting to look at it as well. All right, so I'm going to give it A minus because I do think there's still somewhat of a question mark. Now, if the Mets are still looking for a bat in a trade like Jimenez, or still looking at either Conforto or one of the other bats that are out there that can play left field, then they're not very confident in those situations either. Again, you don't need an all-star or a star at every position, right? If your 8th hitter is Canna, I can assure you it's a hell of a lot better than last year when he had Canna as 5th or 6th at times, and that sucked. Because 6-8 was 6-9 was an absolute disaster for the Mets. It was basically an automatic out. So that's something so I would give it A minus. John, have a good night, buddy. Giovanni, yes. Navarez is definitely starting over Nito, in my opinion. Do you think the Mets will sign Conforto? I think, put it this way. If they make the Liam Hendricks trade and Jimenez is not in it, then yes. I think that makes sense. You could platoon righty-lefty in left field, and I don't think that's a bad option. Rocky, it is great to be a Met fan. Yes, it is. All right, you agree, Chris? That's cool. There you go. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody, or happy holidays. Whatever you're celebrating, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, doesn't matter. All right, what's going on in Nora? So John Hopper on SNY just said not too long ago that he mentioned that was talking to executives that if Steve Cohen's ownership vote was today, he wouldn't get approved to be let in, which obviously. But all right, guys. So we got about a little less than 15 minutes. So again, any more questions you want to bring in, just bring it up now. Justin, I don't know why you're talking about that because yeah, yeah. Vogelback's on this team, obviously. So yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, guys. I'm still reading tweets and all this stuff about Correa today. Like I literally woke up with a group chat with 400 messages and friends that know I'm a fan say, "Hey, did you see this?" When I was wide awake at work. So hey, what can we do? And yes, just for a situation where everybody's going crazy about the Mets payroll, next year, after this year, about between 80 and $100 million is coming off the books in 2023 after this year. And then in 2024, it balloons to like $150 million because Scherzer would be his last year of his deal, and Verlander would be on the last year of his deal. So a lot of money's coming off the books where it works out perfectly for the Ohtani sweepstakes and the Soto sweepstakes in a couple of years. So a lot of money is coming off the books with the New York Mets, and that's a big deal. Yes, when it comes to what's it called with payroll, there's going to be money off the books, especially this year, which is very interesting when Otani's a free agent because Canna, Escobar, Carrasco, that's three guys right there that if you do the math, it's about $45 million right there on three players. You got Cano's 24 million. Thank you. $24 million. So that's already what 70, close to $70 million. And that's not including let's see, there's a couple other guys that I was looking at. McCann, he's probably going to be gone, so that's not going to be a worrisome. Robertson's $10 million is going to be off the books. So you're already approaching $100 million. Like there's money coming off the books. So that's already approaching $100 million. So that 380 is going right back down to 280, and the Mets can give $50 million per year to Ohtani and still have $50 million to spend to get the payroll back up to what it was this year. And that's pretty cool. I think that's a smart way of doing business, especially when you know you want a player, and no matter how much money you have, you still have to have a smart way of thinking when it comes to your payroll. Because look at the Mets payroll. You could look at the Mets payroll, but what signing was a stupid signing or reckless signing? You can't really name any at all. The Mets needed to sign bullpen starting rotation arms, obviously. All right, so somebody said that there's some news about the Liam Hendricks thing. Let me see. I don't know if that's true. Match trade. McCann, Escobar, Vientos for Liam Hendricks and Jake Berger. Yeah. Well, Teddy, wouldn't that be the perfect scenario? Mets win World Series and then we get Ohtani. Like that would be beautiful, right? Again, I don't like to count my chickens before they hatch. Again, I'm not predicting anything, right? Every team that goes into the year with World Series aspirations and a roster on paper that looks like a World Series contender, anything can happen, right? Injuries, bad offensive years by some players that are not expected. That goes for every team. So I'm not going to give you, of course, right before the season starts, I'll give you my predictions on records throughout the league. Okay, Joe, you talked about Twitter. All right. Twitter. What's going on with Twitter? What's going on? Hold on. What the hell just happened with Rafael Devers? God, it's in Spanish. Jesus Christ. Oh wait, Correa. What's going on with Correa? What do you? Okay, thank you, Joe. Yep, I already said that, Joe. I got it. Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think that was just him just bringing some names up, which is fine. It's not a terrible idea, but yeah, I was thinking that as a bench as well. Baseball Central. That's it. That's could be possible. But yeah, guys, once again, it comes down to the fact that if you look at the Mets payroll and the way they structured a lot of deals this year, money's coming off the books. Again, around the $100 million might be a little bit more. Again, with arbitration that is still up in the air with certain players by that time, could be a situation where, the Mets probably, if not during this season, definitely into next offseason, they're probably going to extend Alonso and McNeil. And that money coming off the books is going to help extend those guys along with still making a big push for Ohtani. So it's not. That's why these small deals, high AAV, is very smart, especially with the guys that are going to become free agents. Which clearly the Mets were in on every free agent that they were focused on. Right? Doesn't mean they get them all, but they got most of them. There's no doubt about that. And the Mets had the most free agents this year from their team, and it was a lot of core and a lot of players that were big parts of this Mets team last year that were free agents. 4/5 of their rotation. Your starting center fielder, multiple bullpen arms. The Mets couldn't replace those guys by just doing all trades. And that's why when some people are like, how do you think the Mets are going to spend all this money and being on free agency so much and sign all these players? Like when I did my top 20 free agents, yeah, I might have got most of them wrong when it came to who the Mets were going to sign, but I was right about, I think I said about 4 or 5 of the top 20. Well, they did, but it was different players. I got the Verlander one right. I got Senga right, but it still came down to the fact that they actually did it. And they had to, because you can't replace the players just on trades. The Mets would have had to spend a ton of money anyway by even bringing back every one of the same players that they had last year. So, yes. Mike, no, it's not. They're already saying that Vientos and McCann, you got to look at the whole situation when it comes to the White Sox, right? Liam Hendricks and McCann have a similar contract, so the money's not an issue there, right? You're giving a top 10 prospect for Eloy Jimenez, who he's not a star. He's the guy who hits 290 and hits 16 home runs. That's basically a good player, but not something that's great. And there was already been reports that the White Sox, the needs that they want or they want or need is what the Mets have. And the same thing with what the White Sox have is what the Mets need. Like, I get he was hurt, but there's already a lot of noise about the Mets. Again, I'm not saying Jimenez is going to be in his deal, but if the Mets are going to pay some or most of the money for McCann, and the White Sox like McCann, clearly they had no problem keeping him as the starter for a couple of years before he became a free agent. They like him. And if the Mets are going to throw some money in there with a top 10 prospect, no matter what you think about Vientos, it's not about what you think or I think about Vientos. It's what the White Sox think of Vientos. And we never know what the White Sox like, right? We know the best years of McCann's career was with the Chicago White Sox, right? They might see Vientos as a guy to put in this lineup that they like. We don't, they could like Vientos more than, it could fit in their lineup and they might like him. They might like him a lot more than other players that we probably think are way better, but that doesn't mean nothing, right? It's not, again, how many years in a row that you kept on hearing that McNeil was almost in every freaking trade rumor for the last 2 years. Yeah, and the Mets never wanted to give him up, right? Even if when McNeil had a bad year in 2021, teams still wanted him because people value certain players differently. Baseball Essential. Correct. And again, it really depends on what they want. And again, Liam Hendriks is by itself is a hell of a deal for the Mets, even if you got to give up a top prospect, in a prospect like Vientos or, somebody like that. And if you want to throw in McCann and pay some of his salary. No, Mario, I agree. But again, you got to look where the White Sox are at this point. They spent money the last 2 years, and they completely choked down the stretch. Again, you could say if it was Tony or La Russa or what. But they, at certain points when your team keeps on choking and you're spending money and they're not getting the job done, you have to make changes. And sometimes it might be a difficult change, but it might have to be done. And you don't know what the White Sox are thinking. Like I said, I don't believe that losing Hendriks is going to make the White Sox better no matter what they get back for the Mets. Because the Mets aren't giving a lot of their really good players on their Major League roster. So clearly, they're going to get a prospect. So that's not really helping their Major League roster per se. I mean, losing Hendriks in your bullpen hurts them. But if they're willing to do it, there's a reason why they're doing it. One, they could probably save a little bit of money. Two, if they're going to save a couple of $1 million in this deal, the Mets might say, hey, we'll give you the prospect in Vientos if you like him, but you have to give us Jimenez in that deal. If not, then there's no deal. Like you can't just think that, oh, well, how many years in a row did Brian Cashman fleece other teams with bullshit prospects to get back really good players, or at least they thought they were going to get back really good players, right? I mean, does anybody remember who the Yankees traded for James Paxton? That was a really good deal for the Yankees, and people thought it was crazy what they sent. They sent Montero and all that stuff and a couple of other guys. They sent a pretty decent package back, and what happened, right? You don't even hear of any of those prospects. And James Paxton, at least for 1 year, was extremely good for the Yankees. Yes, he struggled after that. But how many years in a row that the Yankees make trades with some prospects and they never turned out nothing? And at the same time, it doesn't matter what you believe are good prospects. It's what the White Sox are thinking. And we don't know what they're thinking. But clearly, they're willing to give Hendriks in a trade with the possibility of Jimenez in that deal. And if they really like Vientos and they always like James McCann and they just willing to pay him $40 million, well, they're getting an everyday player in McCann. No matter what you think about him, they might like the fact that they would rather pay a $12 million position player than a $15 million reliever who affects the game more. A position player that can play 140 games or a reliever that will pitch in 50 to 60 games. That's what you have to look at as well. And with the White Sox struggling the last 2 years, when they thought they put a good team together, well, guess what? Maybe they want changes. And maybe to, even as good as Hendriks was, where were the White Sox at the end of the year? Watching the playoffs, right? So what's the point of paying a $50 million a year closer when your team is not going anywhere? Because clearly the Guardians stepped over him. And even though the Twins lost Correa, they're always a team that seems like they're always near the top of the division as well. Well, Lau, I don't know why you don't like the Correa deal, but, some people won't. Exactly, Mike. And that's the thing. They want to dump salary. That was the whole reasoning. Even before it was the Mets that were interested, that's the first thing you heard when we heard, like, why would the White Sox trade Hendricks? It comes down to money. And again, they're, yes, in a big city, but they are not a huge market team, right? They're not a New York City team like the Mets. They're on the south side of Chicago when probably about 90% are Chicago Cubs fans, right? They're not a huge fan base. The Mets do have a huge fan base. Yes, they're the second team in this town. Obviously, the Yankee fans are a lot more, but it's the Mets fans compared to the White Sox fans are not even close. So they're considered a small market in a big city. That's what they are right here. And yeah, I do think Correa is going to wear probably number 4. Well, yeah. Again, I think Rafael Devers is getting traded. Again, if this Correa thing didn't happen, I would have been very interested to see if the Mets were going to be involved in Devers, which would have been a crazy move. Like, what do you want to get Devers? I wouldn't even bother, putting players in a package. I'm asking the Red Sox, what do you want? I'll give you 3 top prospects. And if they say Alvarez, Beatty, and Mauricio, here, take them. I mean, you're going to have your third baseman for at least the next 10 to 12 years. So Endeavors is one of the best players in the game. Hell yeah. Like, I mean, listen, if I had a choice, if it didn't come down to just money, or if it did just come down to money, if I had to choose between Devers or Correa, I do really like Correa because he is, if you look at his career numbers in the postseason, extremely clutch. And obviously, the Mets are focused on making the playoffs. You want guys that actually have done it in the playoffs. And Devers is one of the best players in baseball. And when he got the opportunity to play in the playoffs, he played well as well. I choose Devers over Correa if it was everything was equal. But it's not, because you would have to trade for him and pay him. At least with the Correa situation, you keep your prospects for maybe something a little bit more shinier down the road, and you still get your third baseman with a very good player. I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, but we're not looking for Correa to be the 30 plus home run guy. He not. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not looking for that. Again, he's just a piece of the puzzle. The whole point of Correa with this lineup is to lengthen in the lineup. And, well, yeah, no name, yes. Obviously, Jose Ramirez is extremely good, but that's a non-story because he signed with the Guardians. But it's the whole point of lengthening the lineup. Now, you can make a decision. Is Correa going to be a 2 batter, or are you going to put Correa behind Alonso? I think Correa is more of a run producer than people give him credit for. People are like, oh, he never had over 100 RBIs in his career. Well, how can you when you're on the Astros and the Twins and they batted you either leadoff or second almost all the time? You're not going to get a lot of runners on base batting in that part of the order. Yet, he was one of the most consistent and clutch players in the playoffs with runs scored and batted over 300 in the playoffs. He's that type of player. You put him in a spot where there's runners on base, he's going to be one of your best, if not, I don't think he's going to be the highest RBI guy, obviously, with Alonso there and Lindor. But I have no reason why, if you put him 5th, that he can't have close to 85 to 90 RBIs. Because he is a guy that doesn't shy away from the big moments. The Mets had a problem with that last year. I think we noticed that. So, with that said, guys, and that's the other thing, Mike, with Devers. He's 2 years younger than Correa, 26. That's a big difference. Jay, yes. Escobar, DH. At the moment, that's what I'm thinking. But again, if the Mets make the Hendricks trade and Jimenez is in that deal, well, now you really got to look at something where would Jimenez be a DH, or would you put him in left field, Can as your 4th outfielder, and you keep Escobar as your DH and the occasional giving guys days off? Because now you got a couple of guys that you can rotate with the DH spot. But I rather have a guy that can hit from both sides, which Escobar can, and be consistent where you don't got to take a guy out of the lineup because of a quote unquote platoon situation. Doesn't work. All right. Mets tried that twice last year and it bit him in the ass. Right. Started with Davis, Cano, and Smith. Disaster. Right. Platoons don't work. So the Mets go like, oh, let's try it again. Vogelback and Ruff. Disaster. Vogelback wasn't terrible, but again, what the Mets needed, Vogelback didn't provide enough. We had enough on base guys. We couldn't get the guys that were actually on base driven in. That was the problem. And yet again, right now, I don't want a platoon at DH. It's stupid, right? We talked about this last year. Last year, Vogelback got hot in Milwaukee. He hit 2 home runs. I think he had 6 RBIs and had a really good series. Then the Mets went to Oakland for 4. And then Oakland pitched 4 left-handers in a row. And Vogelback was twiggling his thumbs on the bench because he can't hit lefties. So Ruff had to be in the game. So your hot hitter, you had to sit on the bench because your beautiful, bright idea in Epler to put a platoon again when it didn't work the first time and have Ruff in almost every one of those games to start, and it was a disaster. Even though the Mets won 3 out of 4, Ruff was non-existent, was basically nothing in that series. That's a problem. So, guys, with that said, we got through everything. Correa, Mets steal Correa from the Giants, 12 years, $350 million. Hendricks, rumors with the possibility of Jimenez being attached in that deal, looking like McCann Vientos. That could be a situation where money is very similar. The White Sox get a top 10 prospect, and the Mets could get a left fielder and also get another big arm in that bullpen to even make it better. That's an old thing. The big bat, another bat target was Jimenez, but could the Mets still look to bring in Conforto if that Hendricks trade only brings back Hendricks? Now you got Canna and Conforto, lefty-righty. That's not a bad idea as well. And we just talked about the lineup. Will you bat Correa second, or would you going to bat him behind Alonso? So many options the Mets have. Is Escobar going to be your everyday DH with the switch hitting possibility? Could be. So much things that we can look at, guys. But that is the show. Mets Hot Stove Live. We got through everything. We got through your questions. Look out if there's a trade by the time this video is posted. There's not going to be a Mets Hot Stove Live tomorrow night. Too much stuff I got to do coming towards the holidays. But if the Mets, hopefully when I'm not at work, get the news of the Mets trade for Liam Hendricks and others, hopefully I can go live during that and we'll have fun discussing that, where the Mets just add more good talent. And that's something that the Mets haven't done in a very, very long time. If ever, I guess, this Correa signing was so much of a shock. I think it was probably more of a shock than the Mike Piazza trade many, many years ago from the Marlins. Like, obviously, the Piazza trade was much bigger because you're bringing in a Hall of Famer. But that Marlins trade kind of that Piazza trade came out of nowhere. I remember playing a pickup game with my dad in a park, and we had the radio on, and we heard Mike Francesa say, the Mets got Piazza. Like, what? And that's something that similar to Correa, a little different, but similar, just at the end of the night. So with that said, guys, everybody have a good night. Thank you for tuning in to Talking Mets and Rob. Mets Hot Stove Live. We got the bat that we needed for this lineup. Is it a power bat? Not necessarily, but it's a run producer, clutch player that bringing a platinum glove to third base. Don't think for a second, guys, that the Mets are done. Look out for that trade with Hendricks. Could come down tonight. The Mets like to make moves at night and early morning. Maybe it'll happen then. Hopefully it'll happen later in the day tomorrow so we can go live and have some fun discussing that. So with that said, guys, everybody have a good night. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. I will see you next time, guys. Have a good night.
This time we're gonna